I'm gonna give you the best technique to improve your vertical jump, and we're gonna start right now. What's up everybody, it's Dane Miller from GarageStrength.com, and if this is your first time to the channel and you want to be an explosive freak, you want to jump higher, you want to react faster, you want to run faster, make sure that you like, you subscribe, and you ring that notification bell so that we can help you become a champion. So learning the technique around the vertical jump can be very challenging, it can be very difficult, and a lot of people will teach the technique around a standing vertical jump very differently. But I think it's important that right off the bat, we've got to recognize that there's going to be two different types of technical aspects behind the vertical jump. And it's also important to recognize that most athletes are going to self-organize their patterning as well as they possibly can for what type of body they have to optimize their performance. So a lot of coaches are going to benefit from taking a step back, watching your athletes perform that vertical jump and giving them very slight cues instead of over coaching them. Again, athletes who are more athletic, they're more coordinated, they will self-organize, and all we need to do as strength and conditioning coaches is recognize what body type they have and what we can do and what we can offer them to optimize their body type. So before we go into those two specific technical aspects, we've got to understand there's going to be a braking impulse. So we've got to think about when we're starting the vertical jump, we're going to start with that eccentric load. We're going to be dropping our chest forward quite a bit, and that braking impulse will be at the bottom of the eccentric load. And that's going to impact our vertical jump tremendously. If we have a strong braking impulse and we can handle that energy, we're going to be able to reuse it very, very efficiently. And that's where a propulsion impulse comes into play. So now that braking impulse is then going to be countered by that propulsion impulse, and that's going to lead to that peak propulsion as well. So when we can say that peak propulsion, we've got to think about that peak rate of force development. And that's where the key aspects behind the vertical jump come into play. You're going to be braking, you're going to be propelling yourself as rapidly as possible. And when we achieve that peak propulsion, we've got to learn how to engage with those vertical ground reaction forces. When we learn how to really engage with the ground and apply a ton of force in a vertical manner, that's when we're going to see those vertical jumps that are 38, 39, 40 plus inches. So there's really two types of technical aspects behind the vertical jump. And typically, one of the downfalls is that coaches are always telling athletes, keep your chest up, keep your chest up. And one of the downfalls is that when you start to see athletes do a vertical jump with their chest up, they tend to jump backwards. They'll tend to miscalculate their jumps. They end up jumping forward or backward because they're so upright with their trunk. And that coincides with lower levels of that braking impulse. So we've got to start right off the bat. There's going to be athletes that have longer legs. There's going to be athletes that have shorter legs. And so with an athlete that has shorter limbs, they will have a little bit more of an upright torso, but they still need to load forward. And so if we can think about it, relative to that longer limbed athlete, the longer limbed athlete is going to have a little bit more of a hip hinge. Now, ideally, we're going to be somewhere in the middle, unless you're a very long-legged individual. Long-legged individuals will come forward tremendously with their chest, and they're going to hip hinge quite a bit, and then that's going to lead to this incredible propulsion that's vertical. And a lot of long-legged individuals will have incredible vertical jumps. So now going back over this, if we're talking about shorter limbed athletes, we need to make sure that we get a nice stretch. We try and open up our diaphragm. We take in a big breath, and this is something that a lot of coaches miss. Take in that big full breath of air, fill up your belly button, and then commence the eccentric part of the lift. And Do not let out your breath until you're jumping. So a lot of people confuse when they should be breathing in and out. Take a big breath as though you're going to be executing a squat. Drop that chest forward, and with a shorter limbed individual, they won't come forward as much. They still need to come forward to engage the posterior chain, but then as they take a nice long arm sweep behind their torso, they'll commence that braking impulse, and that in turn will turn into the propulsion impulse, and now those arms will sweep towards the sky. Their chest will start to rise up, and then they'll extend through the knees and through the hips, and then up, plantar flexing through the ankles. And that's going to be the execution that we're looking for with shorter limbed individuals. Now, if we're talking about the longer limbed individuals, the breathing aspect still holds true. We want to see a huge breath that fills the belly button. We want the athlete to hip hinge tremendously. Longer limbed individuals have tremendous power in their hips. Their hamstrings are extremely strong, and your hamstrings are going to be predominantly responsible for that hip extension on the finish. And so on top of that, the hamstrings are one of the most fast twitch muscle groups on the body. So if we can engage the hamstrings very, very well by dropping that chest forward, we have a very active arm sweep behind our torso where our hands even go behind our glutes. We can sweep our arms forward, and as we sweep our arms forward, we're going to start to rise with our chest. As we rise with that chest, now the hips start to come through. As the hips come through, the knees will extend, and then the ankles will plantar flex. So when you're watching a longer limbed individual, ideally they're going to be dropping about 8 inches, maybe 8 to 10 inches on that counter movement aspect. A shorter limbed individual might drop about 6 to 8 inches. I would say optimally they should be around that 8 to 10 inch area as well. And obviously this is going to depend upon that height. But if we can focus on what that chest is doing, the chest must come forward. There must be a large amount of arm sweep involved. We've got to have a full breath filling the belly button, and then that big arm sweep then leads into that large hip extension for that big vertical jump that's going to get you those college offers and ultimately help you jump over 40 inches. And this is some key concepts that we use inside our own program that you can click on the description down below, the Vertical Jump Manifesto. You can pick it up today at garagestrength.com. If you want more information about vertical jump training, you can click on this video right here. Until next time, guys, peace.